Bam, bam. Thank you, ma'am. Yes. We on and poppin'. Hello, I'm Judy. Welcome back to my channel. And if you are new, welcome to my channel. So first of all, Happy New Year. I'm very happy. First of all, it's an even number. I love even numbers. But secondly, I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to be alive. So yeah, thank you so much for showing up. If you're here, if you've been with me, and if you're new, thank you so much for checking this channel out. What's funny is today is probably the perfect weather to be talking about what I'm going to talk about today. Today's video is a story time. I have been wanting to share this for about 2 years. Ironically, this happened in 2020, and I've pretty much pushed it off for 2 years because now she has filed for bankruptcy and probably not going to get paid. So let's just get on with the video. So as I'm telling you guys the story, I'm also going to be hanging some clothes. So I got my hangers right here. Got my hangers and I got my clothes in here. Let's put you in. And I'm going to basically try to multitask. I've been wanting to hang these clothes for about 5 days now. And yeah, I'm tired of looking at it. So, I'm like, you know what? Let's do a video and let's also hang. Anywho, so basically this story time is about probably one of my worst clients ever. Unfortunately, I lost a couple of dollars because I took her on. But because of that experience, I've learned so much about how Rescue My Space should function, how to navigate around bad clients, and how not to waste your money on people who lie. So anywho, about 2 years ago, I took on this client. So initially she called me, we're gonna call her Carrie. Carrie called me to give her company a consultation. So first of all, I was super excited because I was like, oh my gosh, consultation and a company. Anyway, I need to hang. So she called me in to give her company a consultation. She was the operations manager. I think she had a pretty prominent role in that company. And she was basically a decision maker. She was new to the company, so she wanted to just make it more youthful, make it more digital, paperless. And I was the company she chose to contact for this job. So anyway, so I go to the consultation, I meet her. This is this beautiful woman. She's maybe about 10 years older than me. And she was just amazing, super inspirational just by talking to her. Just a few words we really exchanged in the beginning of our meeting. And I got there and I did the consultation. So I walked around, took my photos, took my measurements, took notes. And then afterwards, we pretty much just talked to each other. We had like a 2.5 hour conversation, which was mostly her talking, and basically just talking about just the company itself and her, I guess, her new approach to making the company better, if you will, better. So she talked to me about that. She talked to me about personal stuff too, which was pretty weird. People do, I hear a lot of personal stories, but it's usually once I'm at the session. It's never really during the consultation. But it was odd because she was telling me a lot of things about the company and like people already. So it was already a red flag, like, should I even take on this client? I mean, there's already problems behind the scenes, but whatever. Also, outside of oversharing, she was also over talking. So she would ask me a question or two and I'm pretty short because this is a very professional setting for me, at least. It's a consultation for my business. So I wasn't going to go deep, but she would go extremely deep and almost over talk me, like didn't really care what I had to say and just wanted to overshare and over talk, which is why the consultation lasted 2.5 hours. At that time, my consultations were free. Now they are not, but they were before. So I feel like she took advantage of that. Anywho, so I left and I went home, started researching because I was like, I have to start working on this estimate, but I have to make sure this estimate makes sense because I wasn't just, taking on a residential client. It was going to be a commercial client, like a company. So things had to be a little different. My proposal had to be like almost a package. I had to look professional and look like I knew what I was doing, because I knew how to execute. It was just a matter of making sure that cost, expenses, like all the milestones and everything added up. Anyway, I worked on that for about maybe about 3 days. It took me a while. And then I sent it to her. And this is backwards. And she called me for a second consultation because she was like, hey, I'm thinking of doing the warehouse as well, and also papers. So their goal, as I mentioned earlier, her goal was to digitize all her paperwork. So go paperless. And mind you, they had decades of paperwork just locked in cabinets. And I thought it would be a great idea to go digital, because now they would have more space, because a lot of these forms or a lot of these documents were going to be digitized. Also, even if they didn't want to get rid of those old forms, there's companies that will allow them to house their forms in their facility, which I thought was brilliant, because rather than having it housed there, they can have it housed somewhere that's extremely private and protected, and moving forward, they can be digital. Anywho, so I go back, do the consultation. I also now go into the warehouse, and they have this huge warehouse, which, first of all, the first look, I was like exhausted and overwhelmed because it was so much to take in. And just for little old me, of course, I was going to get together a team. But at the time I didn't have a team. So she shows me the warehouse, and I'm like, okay, cool. She explains to me their like shipping process, their receiving process, which of course helps a lot, because now when I'm creating an organized plan, I know how to organize, and I know how to organize their warehouse so that it makes more sense and the process is more efficient. Anywho, she does that, and then again, I find myself, and by the way, the consultation was on the Saturday. So I find myself again staying there for like much longer than I should have, because she wanted to overtalk. She wanted to share with me a lot of information, and I was like, okay. And this time it was a little bit more deeper, a little bit more private. And I was like, okay, this is weird that she's sharing this with me, but maybe she just feels like she can. Honestly, I do have that aura where people just feel like they can indulge a lot of information onto me, which I'm super like receptive of it, because I just love connecting with people. And if someone wants to go really deep with me so early, I'm usually like, okay, let's do it. Even though it was a red flag, because it was about her company and her boss. And I was like, that's interesting that you're sharing this information with me, knowing that I would need to get paid. And I'm saying that to say, like, she shared with me that the company's previous bookkeeper or accountant was embezzling money. And I was like, oh, that's very interesting that you are sharing this with me, but okay, cool. But see, the thing with her though, is she was extremely inspirational. You know, she was this 40-something-year-old woman who was this prominent figure in her company. And for me, I was like, wow, like I've never really seen that, a woman of color. She had dreadlocks. She was like super fashionable, just pretty cool. And she was just changing this company. I thought that was amazing to see this Black woman able to come in and just completely change the company and make it more competitive and more modern and more with the times. So anyway, I go home. I then, of course, update the estimate. I do more research on how I can provide a better estimate. And now I submit it to her. So, I resubmit it to her. So anyway, she's like, oh, okay, cool, great. I'll get back to you in so-and-so days. I'm like, okay, great. So of course I'm taking on other clients, almost forgetting about it. Not forgetting about it, but like other clients are priority. And then she comes back to me and says, hey, they approved it. And by the way, in the middle of me waiting for an answer, I'm now going to other third-party companies that can digitize the company. I'm going to them, doing tours, meeting with all these people, because I have this company that I am going to potentially work with that will need a facility to completely digitize their company. So you already know that that was going to be, there's going to be a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of planning, and of course I have expertise in that, but I just wanted to make sure that I had my ducks in a row. So whenever I am ready to start working with this company, with Carrie, that there were no issues. So anyway, I did all that. I met all these people. Everything was ready. I was ready. And then of course she gives me the go ahead. So I'm like, okay, cool. So then she tells me, hey, let's wait because her boss needs to like figure out when's the best time to start. I'm like, okay, great. Whenever you're ready, let me know. So then let's say a week or two passed. She calls me and she's like, hey, by the way, we're going to cancel that. All that work you put into everything, we're going to cancel it. And, I do want you to come into my residential space and organize it. So she had recently moved out of her previous home into a new home, which was like a townhome apartment. And she needed help unboxing, unpacking, organizing, all that jazz. And I was like, okay, cool. Like that's already what we do. That's no biggie. And then she shares with me that, oh yeah, the reason why she canceled the company one was because she quit. I was like, okay, odd, because she was like, I remember whenever during the consultation, she would share with me how she's like changing the company. She's so needed. Like she's doing this and that and this and that and this and that. And I'm just like, wow, that's so great. You're so great. Oh my gosh. Like I literally was like looking up to her, like you are amazing. And then all of a sudden she's like, oh, I no longer work there. Red flag number 2, 3, 4. But then again, whatever. I'm like, okay, well, that's understandable, I guess. Things happen. And then we then transfer it to residential. And then now I'm focusing on her apartment. So anyway, let's say day 1. We go to her apartment, we unpack, we do what we do. She's of course there talking and, we're doing our thing as organizers. I'm working with one of my fellow organizers and we unpack. We're probably there for about 8 to 10 hours. Yeah, 8 to 10 hours. We unpack, we do our thing, and then we leave. We're not done. Her job or her organizing job was going to take a few days because when you're unpacking and organizing, it takes a lot, especially when you are decluttering someone who had the number of items that would sit in a house in an apartment. So there was too much stuff. It wasn't going to fit. So we had to do a massive declutter, which takes hours. So we do that. She's getting rid of a lot of stuff. I'm already like, wow, you're doing great. Like, good for you for letting go of these items. She's had it for over decades and she just seemed very ready to just change. So let me check my time. Okay, I have to speed this up. So anyway, so we come up, so we come again, we do our thing. I'm trying not to give you super details because it's gonna make this video so long. And we buy products, we add them to her space. Like we do her pantry, we do her kitchen, we do her main closet, her guest closet. Like we're doing all these spaces and everything's going well. We had to, there were times when we had to wait a week or two because I had other clients in between, to come back. So let me just fast forward to this one time. There's this one time, which was a extremely bright red flag. I go in, we organize like her office area, we're decluttering, and I'm with another fellow organizers. There were 2 organizers that worked with me on this job. And it's like towards the end, I have one of my girls leave. I'm like, oh, there's no need for 2 of us. I'll just be there. So I'm there with Carrie and we're just going through her paperwork. And all of a sudden I see this letter that has this name that's a version of her name, but not. It's like the full. So if her name is Carrie, maybe her full name is like Carissa. So it says like Carissa and then another last name. I really didn't think anything of it. To me, I was like, okay, cool. You have this. Wasn't even anything that I thought. I didn't think of anything. But anyway, when she sees that I see this letter, she like freaks out. She's like, oh my gosh. She's just like, she's having this like panic. And I'm not gonna say panic attack or anything, but she's just in panic because she's just like, whatever I just saw is something I was not supposed to see. But to me, it's still not registering because I'm just like, it's just a letter, but okay. So she was so upset. I was just like, oh, it's fine. Like, I can leave for the day, we'll just reconvene. To me, maybe it was something that triggered her and she just couldn't continue, which I was fine with that. I was like, okay, no worries. I'll just come back. And that's what happens. Which was such a red flag because I was like, why did this trigger her? We all have different triggers. So I thought about it, but then I kind of let it go. I was just like, I'm not sure what I just saw. I could still remember the name and I was like, okay, because, I saw it. And I just remember thinking to myself, I guess this is her old name. I assume she changed her name, and she did. And for some reason, she just didn't want anyone to ever see that, but I did, because as the story will continue, you will know why. So anyway, so the next time comes, so in the midst of that, or before that day, she had shared with me a lot of personal information, that I have heard before during sessions, but it was almost really personal to where I was like, oh, you didn't have to share that with me, like you don't really know me like that. But I was open to listening because maybe she needed someone to talk to. And I love being people's person to talk to because I just love listening to people. So anyway, she shares that with me about her past with her ex. And I am, I feel so bad for her, of course. Like, I'm just like super empathetic and sympathetic. Like, it was just, giving her encouraging words because of course she was able to get out of that and build this beautiful life that she had. And I thought, it was just admirable. And again, I was just like in awe of her because, when I come across women who are just doing their thing, it's just super inspirational for me because I didn't see that growing up. So anyway, she shares that with me. So when I saw that letter, my assumption was, oh, I know she had to kind of change her identity. So maybe this is something that triggered her and reminded her of her past. I was like, okay, cool. That's understandable. But it was still a red flag because she reacted as if she didn't want me to see it. And because if I saw it, it would expose the truth. Okay, whatever. So I come back the next day, we finish the office, everything is done. I'm like, okay, we're done. We probably had been there for, let's say about a week together. It was like within 2 to 3 weeks, but like 7 days total. And we worked our asses off. We got her moved into her apartment. In the middle of that, I would help her look for like home decor, just pieces that would work in her space. I was doing that for free. So we would collaborate. There was this, I can't remember the app, but we would collaborate. And if I found something, we would save it and then we would send it to each other so that we can agree on what to get. And either I would buy or she would buy it. Of course, I would get reimbursed. Okay. So thankfully we didn't do that. Oh my gosh, I could have been out way more money. Okay. So let's get to the juice. So anyway, I let her know, hey, I'm going to send you the invoice with everything that we've purchased, with the hours we've worked. By the way, again, 2 organizers worked with me. It was going to be a pretty substantial invoice because we've been working for so long, so many hours. Like, we worked our asses off to make sure that she was comfortable in her new home. We did so much. We did above and beyond. Anywho, so I sent her the first invoice I sent her the invoice the first time. And then she never pays, I think she eventually, there was one time she texted me and was like, hey, can you, I received the invoice. I'm going to pay you the money. But I have to have my lawyer do blah, 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 blah. What was interesting was even in the midst of like organizing her home, she would share with me that she was like being sued. She was being sued by the company that she worked for prior. So the company that I was going to organize was now suing her, which was odd because from when she told me that, I remembered the accountant who embezzled money. And I was like, it must be extremely easy to steal money from this company if she was able to embezzle so much money. And also in the midst of this, she also shared with me that her previous boss was a drunk. And I was just like, okay, that's interesting. This is the man that's supposed to be writing the checks. And now he's a drunk. How likely am I going to get paid? I was just like, bleh, bleh. But she assured me like, well, she was the one who had like access to the money. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, you have access. Cool. Like, I don't have anything to worry about that because you got it. You're the operations manager. I'm assuming you got it. So anyway, so she shares that with me. So she's being sued, and she's sued before. So she got like a lot of money after suing a company prior. And now she was being sued, and she was like countersuing. It was just like this whole thing. So she was always on the phone with a lawyer, don't know. So she shared this information with me, and it's like a lot of suing going on. And I'm just like, And in the midst of this, she's like looking for a new home, real estate in like California. She's like speaking with her real estate agent. Poor woman. And so she's like this woman with all these money. She got the money, and she's just living her life and enjoying, as a single woman. So anyway, so I sent her the invoice, and she's like a bit finicky with it. And she tells me, hey, can you do this? And, or she's waiting for whoever to approve whatever. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. Maybe this is a different way to pay. Sure, I'm not going to judge you. I'll just wait. Didn't even think anything outside of she's going to eventually pay me. Like, it wasn't not eventually, but she's going to pay her invoice. It wasn't even a thought that she wouldn't. So anyway, what I just remembered is I think I came back to her home one more time. We had to like finish something. And I remember before we left, she was like, hey, can you split the invoice into two? And I was like, okay, sure. She's like, yeah, it's a lot easier for her cards to pay for them separately. I guess she was going to use two forms of payment. Don't care how you pay. Cool, I'll do that. It's easy. I do it. I let her know, hey, it's been split, very simple to pay, very easy. And she still doesn't pay. So a month goes by, and I'm texting her like, hey, what's going on? And she always has an excuse. Oh, it's this, it's that, it's this. I'm like, okay, weird. So then I don't hear from her. I don't hear from her anymore. She is literally off the face of the planet. She is, she just went ghost. And I'm like, that's scary. Well, I was like, oh, but I know where she lives. So, hey, if anything, I know what to do I can knock on her door and be like, hey, what's going on? Which is pretty, don't do that. So anyway, so she finally contacts me, and she's like, she calls me like out of the blue. She's like, hey, I'm in what does she call it? Like a psych ward. And I was like, okay. And she was telling me that her health went bad because she had like supposedly, I don't know what's true, what's not, but she had an autoimmune disease. She had something going on, which had her in the hospital all the time. And also she had broken down because of something. She shared with me a lot that she's gone through in the past. So, which was pretty traumatic, and I could understand why someone would need outside help. I was very sympathetic and was like, you know what, of course, like, it's fine. I understand, because why wouldn't she pay me? I was just like, she's going through a lot. Hey, I'll just have to wait a little longer. So anyway, in the midst of that, I paid my organizers so that, of course, they don't have to deal with what I'm dealing with. And, I was just like, we'll just wait. It's a waiting game. So for maybe about 6 months, she was going back and forth how she's going to pay me. She just needs to tell her lawyer. She needs to tell her estate manager. She needs to tell all these people that, hey, pay her, pay her, pay her. So for a long time, I was very like, okay, she's going to pay me. I'm not even thinking anything other than that. Until she gave me a date, and she didn't meet that date. She never met the date. She would always give me dates and never pay. So then months go by, and I realize that she is not going to pay, and she's possibly scamming me. She scammed me for all the hours we put in. It was probably over 20 hours, if that, 20, 30 hours. All the products I bought to use in her space. She scammed me for everything that I put into her project. She did me dirty. And every time I think about it, it just makes me so angry. Like, I've overcome it. I've let it go, but it's still a wound. It's still a wound because, it's someone that I never would have thought would do it. Even though I didn't know her, I was just like, there's no way. Why would she? She was so like uplifting of like Black small businesses, and she's like, she would like tell me about this client, like, or these potential clients. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, that'd be great if you give them my contact information. She's like, you need to go this way. And I remember even asking her like just business questions, and she was very open to like sharing me like, this bank will be good and don't do that and try this. And I was just like, okay. Just like being very receptive to like the information she was giving me, without knowing that she was actually scamming me for basically my time, my energy, my business, everything. She was scamming me. And about 3 months ago, I received a letter from the bankruptcy court that she has filed bankruptcy, and there's like tons of businesses on this letter that she still owes, and I was included. So it wasn't just me. She was doing that too. She was doing that to every business that came into her contact or into contact with her. In the midst of this project, mind you, it was about 3 weeks, 7 days total. She would be talking to all these other companies. She spoke to a company that was supposed to like sell her old furniture. She spoke to a company that was going to provide different services. She was going to have a closet company come into her home and redo both closets. She was doing so much. She just abused the kindness of all these small businesses to benefit herself. Yes, and I'm using the word abuse because that's what it was. And then at the end, she couldn't even afford it. She was a woman who lied about her life. There was nothing that was true about her life. She was just, honestly, I don't know if the stories, her past was true, but after someone lies to you and scams you, it's hard to believe the stories that you were told, because what is true, she was being sued by her previous company because, if I'm not mistaken, she was stealing money herself. So there was a lot of fraud going on that unfortunately I was in it. And at this point, I just washed my hands and said, I don't want anything to do with anything with her. So the bankruptcy court was asking me like, do you want to, contest? I didn't even respond. I was like, I don't care anymore. The time, the effort that I spend into this client, into her, into listening to her, taking everything in, but she talks a lot. She's a chatty catty and over talks and overshares. Like all that I took in from her was for nothing outside of learning. I did learn a lot, and I didn't want anything to do with her. Which is why I can share the story now, because I've learned so much from that experience. And now I know for sure that I will never deal with someone like that. Hopefully I don't. So yeah, that's what's going on. It's funny. There's more that happened. I remember about 1.5 years afterwards, I sent her a message, like a long dissertation of like how I felt, like, oh, you hurt my heart. I was so sad and broken because of you, or not broken, but like I was so like hurt because of you. I looked up to you. You're like a mentor kind of text. And she actually texted me back and was like, you know what? I'm going to pay you in 45 days. My lawyer's going to call you. So I spoke to a lawyer. The lawyer assured me I was going to get paid. 45 days passes and nothing happens. So this is what she does. She's a true scammer. She likes to play with people's emotions, play with people's money. And she just lies to herself about what she doesn't have. So those are people I don't want in my life, which is why I said, you know what, I'm gonna let it go. I don't need that. I don't need to go to I don't need to have any part of her in my life. So whatever I lost. In total, I lost about $5,500. That I had to eat, of course. I still had to pay my organizers. I was never reimbursed for the products. So basically I just gave her free money. But I learned a lot from that, because now my business is different. So if you are looking to starting a business, a service business, also just kind of in life, it's really important that you spot out these type of people. Usually scammers, people who are fraudulent, these people will show you their true colors in the beginning. Like I should have known the moment that she started to tell me about this, these scandals, I guess, in her life and in the company she was working for. I should have known she's not real. The moment that she canceled and said she quit and said, hey, come to my residential space and organize that, I should have not done that, because she basically built up this lie for me to believe that this was going to be this great opportunity. And then she like said, no, it's not. But for me, I was like, oh, that's fine. I'm still going to be able to help her in another capacity. And I was happy with that. But it was the build up to it and then to change it was a red flag. She overshared, she overtalked, didn't really let me get in many words. She just wanted to just dump a lot of information onto me so that I could almost believe that she was a victim, or look at her, admire her, so that I wouldn't believe that she would scam me. It was all manipulation. And that's kind of how you can tell if someone's manipulating you is when they are oversharing, over talking. You're not getting a word in. They don't really care what you have to say. They just want to overshare and talk to you and almost big themselves up and make themselves seem like they're better than. She did that a lot. When it comes to your business, one thing I learned was each time I now receive deposits. And outside of deposits, I don't wait until the end of the session to then bill the client. I usually send the invoice after organizing 1 to 2 spaces, because a lot of times when you send a bill of the overall space, sometimes that number can be pretty high, and it can be very shocking to see a large payment that you have to pay compared to like a smaller one. So definitely I learned that I should bill according to phases and not the overall project if it's over like $1,500. So definitely keep that in mind when you are sending out an invoice. And also make sure your terms and conditions is clear. Make sure the client is aware of it. I would also take it a step further and get a signature from them, because that also really like confirms that they want to move forward. I will also take it a step further and suggest that you hold on to the card that they use to put the 25 or 35 or deposit down, and then charge that same card at the end. That is then going to, in some capacity, protect you, because you do have the card on file. And once you're done with the session or the project, you can then charge it rather than wait for them to pay. Because that's the issue that I have even now, I'm always waiting for people to pay rather than me just charging it. So definitely incorporate that into your services. Of course, make sure that the client is aware. So in your terms and condition, you can mention that, or even in your notes, you can mention that so that they're aware that this card will be charged at the end of the session. That's just going to make your life a lot easier. And just, whenever you have a gut feeling, when your intuition tells you that, hey, this is not right, this is too many red flags, this person doesn't seem, they're not consistent with things, definitely consider that. And if you have to leave the client, leave them. I know sometimes it feels like you want to hold on to the client or keep the client because you're like, ooh, I have a client and I'm excited. But if there's so many red flags, guys, don't keep that client, because it's going to be a mess at the end. And I'd rather not have a client than have a client that is a scammer. You don't want that. My goal for this story time was to prevent you from going through what I went through, because thankfully, my business is doing okay. So at that time, I had a really good 2020. So, losing $5,500 was a good hit, but I still was able to move on and be good, compared to if it's your first time, losing $5,500 can, for some first timers, be the end of the business. So please be aware of these type of clients, and also make sure that you do your due diligence when it comes to your business. You protect yourself so that at the end you are not eating cost that you don't have to, because you ignored those red flags like I did. Thank you so very much for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you are interested in hearing more Storytime videos as I organize my home, fold, hang, whatever, let me know in the comment section below. I have another good one that can be told now, so let me know. Anyway, again, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for showing up, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.